there last night for the game. When the news broke as well, how did we get here, Sebi?
Well, U.S. Soccer would like you to believe that we got here after a long, thorough, exhaustive process. In fact, they said so 5 or 6 times during the press conference today. They really, really want everybody to believe that. Whether we believe that or not, we can get into a little bit later in this segment. But what is clear here is that after a very gradual process over the last 3-4 months since Matt Crocker took over as a sporting director, this thing closed very quickly in the last week or so. Gregg Berhalter told us in the press conference that he was indeed talking to Club America, which we know was reported last week, big club down in Mexico. At one point, he was reported as the #1 option there, but he told us in the press conference today when U.S. Soccer offered him the opportunity for kind of a final interview. He told Club America, I have to go take this. And then Berhalter went a step further, and he told us after that interview, by the time he got to the airport, the people at U.S. Soccer had called him and told him he was their guy. So after a very gradual start, something happened in the last week that really made the Federation say, we've got to get this done now.
Casey, do you like it? Do you like the U.S. bringing him back?
That's a question that is going to be answered over time. But I think the part that is questioning for me is if they felt all along that Gregg was the right guy, why didn't you just renew his contract a week after the World Cup was over? So there was clearly some sort of process in, and I know that there was people out, people back in, and they did talk to a few people, I guess. To Seb's point, I think there's some question marks there if people really believe that or not. Obviously, there was fans that weren't happy maybe with the way the World Cup finished. There was obviously issues during the World Cup with man management of players. And in the end, I guess it's the safe route in going this way. But look, I think Gregg has a lot of work to do to regain the trust of the players. He's got a lot of work to do to win over the fans, because it hasn't been an announcement that has galvanized the fan base and said, okay, great, we've got Gregg back. So it's going to be interesting. And then why is he not taking over at Gold Cup if he's the manager? So it's definitely leaving a lot of people questioning the process, as Gregg said. And so I think it's going to be one of those that we're going to have to come back to in 6 months and see where we're at.
Okay, with the point on Gio Reyna, we've just heard Christian Pulisic speaking out in favour of Gregg Berhalter. Tim Weah's recently done the same as well. What if you are Gio Reyna? How are you feeling right now?
You're kind of going, I'm sorry, what? What do you mean? What do you mean he's coming back? Because you thought he was out of the picture. And while I suppose there is value to the fact that your team captain, Christian Pulisic, has been out there time and time again flying the flag of Gregg Berhalter and defending him as a manager and how good he has been with the players and with the team, all of that has tremendous value, I suppose. Apparently it does, because he is indeed the manager again of the national team. And apparently the players have had an input on this. That in itself is a slippery slope. When it comes to Gio Reyna, it doesn't change what the drama was, what the dramatics were, the involvement of the parents and the overzealous parents, and then the overreaching parents and the sense of entitlement, and how the conversation went in that direction and not in actually evaluating Gregg Berhalter's tenure as a manager, which I think is important. The conversation became about Gio Reyna and it became about Gregg Berhalter. It did not actually analyze what we saw from Gregg Berhalter and his national team. And what we saw from his national team was, all right, it's okay. Not bad, okay. Not great, okay. You give him a grade, I'll give him a B. Do you get excited with a B? Well, not really. And what did Gregg Berhalter do in his tenure that makes you believe that there is yet another step to be taken, that there is optimism to think this team is going to take a leap forward? Where is that excitement coming from? Because if you look at his tenure as a national team coach, you look at, yeah, well, they made it back to the World Cup, which you expect them to do. They got out of the group, which really you expect them to do. They lost in the round of 16 to a better team, which is really what you expect them to do. So there hasn't been anything about his tenure that you go, this is what takes us to the next level. He just mentioned the next level. I'm curious to hear what the next level really is. A player that can take you to that next level potentially is a guy like Gio Reyna. But he's got to be on the field for you. And you got to find a role for him. And you got to find a structure that works for him and Christian Pulisic, and that they can both coexist on the field in the manner in which they did last night. That in itself has to be resolved. And it's not just about a conversation. It's about trust. Casey just mentioned the word trust. There has to be a trust from Gregg Berhalter on Gio Reyna, and Gio Reyna has to trust Gregg Berhalter. How that happens overnight, and let me tell you, I've been in locker rooms a better part of my life. You don't just build that trust on one conversation. It's on actions. It's on what you see day to day. And you don't get to see each other day to day because it's not the national team structure, and that's not how it works. I don't know this is as easy as to say, we've addressed it, we moved on, it's water under the bridge, here we go, we were all moving forward. I don't think it's quite that simple.
What are your thoughts on it, Sebi?
Yeah, I think there's two main complaints here. One's about the process, and one is to the point that the guys are hitting on, which is the ambition. I think it's fair to question the process here, because when Gregg Berhalter was hired in 2019, everybody complained that they didn't talk to enough people. Well, here they've gone out, they spent millions on a consulting firm to hire a new sporting director, and we somehow end up with the same coach. I think you've got the right to question that process. Beyond that is the question of ambition. Is Gregg Berhalter a good coach for this national team? I think the answer is unequivocally yes. Is he the guy to take you to what the guys are saying, the next level? And let's put it into context. For the home World Cup of 2026. What a massive opportunity this is for the United States. And in the press conference today, I asked JT Batson, he's the CEO, directly, what was the budget? And he said, there was no budget. There was no limit to what we could go out and spend. And then I asked Matt Crocker, the sporting director, what he was looking for. And he told us in this press conference that he kind of ruled out those double-digit, is what he called them, coaches. So we hear that there was this limitless budget, but it wasn't matched with limitless ambition. And I think ahead of the 2026 World Cup, we got all these guys coming into their prime. This was the moment for U.S. soccer to take a home run swing, and they didn't really do that. And I think that's why you're getting a lot of frustration from fans.
Seb, let me stick with you, because why is it after the Gold Cup he starts? Why not now? And why isn't it announced later then, if that's the case?
Yeah, so one, I think when you talk about announcements, U.S. Soccer did not want this news to break in the moment that it did right before USA-Mexico. It's very critical to point out one of the agents involved, who's representing one of the other coaches involved, went on Twitter Friday morning and kind of said, well, my guy's not going to get it. And then all the journalists knew, all right, well, the decision's been taken. And that's why this breaks now instead of later on. They would have clearly liked for it to happen later on. Matt Crocker, the sporting director, asked directly today about why not the Gold Cup. And apparently, Matt Crocker thinks that there are more important things for the national team manager to be doing than, checks notes, manage the national team. That's what he said in the press conference today, that there's other things that he can be doing that are more important than the national team job. Now, we know they're not going to take the A team to the Gold Cup. Maybe Casey agrees. Maybe there are more important things like relationship building and getting back on the right place with guys like Gio Reyna. But I would think the number one job of the national team manager is to, manage the national team.
Well, thank you very much for watching ESPN on YouTube.